Rising from ashes to glory. Under the dim glow of a single lamp, Aryan Kapoor sat slouched at his old wooden desk. The air was thick with humidity, seeping through the cracked windows of his tiny one-bedroom apartment. His once vibrant eyes now looked weary, reflecting the constant battles he had fought over the past few years. Despite all the late nights, the hustling, the failed ventures, he felt like he was still standing at square one. Zero. Aryan had never known life to be easy. Born to a middle-class family, he had watched his father work 2 jobs to make ends meet. But as fate would have it, Aryan lost his father at a young age, leaving his mother to shoulder the responsibility of raising 2 children. From then on, Aryan carried an invisible weight on his shoulders, the weight of making something of himself, to rise above the struggles his family had endured. From a young age, he dreamt of starting his own business, of building an empire. But dreams, he learned, were one thing, reality was another. When Aryan graduated with a business degree, the job market was tight. He worked in various positions, sometimes juggling 2 jobs just to make enough to save. Despite his best efforts, things never seemed to take off. Each time he started a venture, it would falter, forcing him to move back to the drawing board. Now at 28, Aryan had seen one failed business after another, with mounting debts threatening to consume his fragile hope. His latest attempt, a small tech startup, had barely made a mark. Investors were not interested, and he could hardly attract customers. Desperation clung to him like a second skin. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this," he whispered into the silence of his apartment, the emptiness amplifying his doubt. 6 months ago, Aryan had been sitting in a luxurious conference room. He had been hopeful then, pitching his startup idea to a panel of seasoned investors. "We want to revolutionize e-commerce," he said with passion. His idea was to create a platform that could integrate small-scale artisans directly with consumers across the globe, eliminating middlemen and ensuring that local crafts could reach a wider market. The room was filled with nods of approval, polite smiles, and enthusiastic words of encouragement. But when it came time for the investors to commit, the answers were vague, non-committal. "We love your passion, Aryan, but it's not the right time for us. Maybe once you have more traction." Rejection after rejection followed, each one carving away at his self-confidence. Yet, Aryan couldn't bring himself to give up. He poured every last penny into his idea, stretching his resources thin. But time was running out. The bills were piling up, and his savings had almost disappeared. One night, after another day of fruitless cold calls and unanswered emails, Aryan decided to take a long walk. The bustling streets of Mumbai were filled with life, contrasting the dull monotony of his existence. As he wandered aimlessly, he stumbled upon a small craft shop tucked away in a narrow alley. The shop was filled with handmade products, intricately woven fabrics, hand-carved woodworks, and stunning pottery. Behind the counter stood an old man, his hands worn from years of work, yet his eyes sparkled with pride as he polished a beautiful vase. Intrigued, Aryan struck up a conversation. The man introduced himself as Raghav, a second-generation artisan who had been working in the same craft for over 50 years. As Aryan admired the man's work, he realized something. The beauty, the craftsmanship, and the uniqueness of these pieces were unlike anything sold in major retail chains. "How do you sell your products?" Aryan asked. Raghav smiled. "Mostly through word of mouth, some local markets. It's tough nowadays. The younger generation doesn't seem as interested in traditional crafts anymore." A thought sparked in Aryan's mind. The problem wasn't the lack of demand, it was the lack of access. People across the world would love these authentic pieces if only they knew where to find them. And then it hit him, the gap he had been trying to fill with his startup wasn't just about e-commerce, it was about bringing human stories and traditions into the equation. That night, Aryan couldn't sleep. He felt a surge of energy he hadn't experienced in months. His mind raced with ideas of how he could integrate artisans like Raghav into his platform. But this time, it wasn't just about selling products. It was about preserving culture, empowering small creators, and bridging the gap between tradition and modernity. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Aryan worked tirelessly to redesign his platform, now focused on connecting artisans from across India with a global market. But this time, he changed his approach. Instead of chasing big investors, he reached out to the people who mattered, the artisans themselves. He visited workshops, spoke to craftsmen, listened to their stories, and understood their needs. Slowly, word began to spread. More artisans signed up, and soon enough, Aryan had built a small but dedicated community. His platform, now aptly named Crafted Stories, was beginning to gain traction. But the road was still far from easy. Aryan was struggling with marketing, reaching the right audience, and handling logistics. Yet, something had changed within him. Every time he faced an obstacle, instead of feeling defeated, he reminded himself why he started. This wasn't just about him anymore. He had a responsibility to the artisans who had placed their trust in him, to the craftspeople whose lives he could change. As the months passed, Crafted Stories began to catch the attention of niche markets. Social media influencers started promoting the platform, drawn by the authenticity and storytelling behind each product. Soon, international buyers took notice. Aryan's vision of helping small artisans reach global consumers was finally materializing. But the most profound moment came when Aryan received an email from a customer in New York. The customer had bought a hand-woven saree from Raghav's collection and attached a note, asterisk, "Thank you for preserving such beautiful traditions. This isn't just a product, it's a piece of history. Please keep sharing these stories." Asterisk. Aryan sat in front of his computer screen, tears welling in his eyes. He realized something he had been too blind to see before. The key mantra to his success wasn't about becoming a millionaire or building an empire. It wasn't even about getting investors to believe in him. It was about staying true to the heart of his mission. He had started this journey with nothing but a dream, but what kept him going was the belief that his work mattered, not just to him, but to others. Years later, Aryan Kapoor would stand on a stage, accepting an award for his contributions to empowering local artisans and promoting traditional crafts globally. Crafted Stories had grown into a renowned platform, supporting thousands of artisans and their families. But when asked about the secret to his success, Aryan's answer was simple. It's not about the money, or fame, or recognition. The key is finding something bigger than yourself, something that lights a fire in you, even when the world tells you to stop. It's about hard work, yes, but more importantly, it's about knowing why you're working in the first place. As Aryan stood there, looking at the faces of those who had supported him, he realized that the journey from zero to the pinnacle of success wasn't about a sudden breakthrough or one lucky moment. It was about showing up every day, working tirelessly, and believing in something greater than yourself. For Aryan, the pinnacle wasn't the award he held, it was the countless lives he had touched along the way.